Godzilla vs. Destroyah was created in 1995 by the creators of Godzilla, Toho, and was the 7th and final film in the Heisei era of Godzilla films. Oh, by the way, this is my face. So there are some rumors that Destroyah, the villain in this movie, may just be appearing in Godzilla vs. Kong, or at least some fans really hope that. So that's why we decided to review this Godzilla film. But if you want to see more of these, make sure to let us know which Godzilla film you want to see. So I'm not going to fully describe everything because, some of you guys may not have seen it before. You may be new Godzilla fans. But there are going to be mild spoilers here. Directed by Takeo Okawara and sporting another fantastic soundtrack created by Akira Ifukube, the movie was able to hit certain emotions that are hard to find in most Godzilla films. Really, the whole tone and vibe of this movie is something to be highlighted. There's almost like this sad and desperate feel throughout the whole entire movie. And this was really brought out by creative angles and certain shots, but especially from the soundtrack. Godzilla has always had a popular musical theme, but I'm not sure if there was ever one like this. From thundering and bassy to beautiful and high pitch. The soundtrack to Godzilla vs. Destroyah is almost enough reason to watch the movie in itself. Ifukube, you will always be a legend. So the general opinion with this film seems to be rather positive, and I can see why fans think that. Godzilla vs. Destroyah is not just a dudes in suits giant monster film. Yeah, it does have those elements still in it, but it also focused on a much more personal and almost Jurassic Park-like scary creature feature. Before Destroyah reached his final form, there were these smaller versions of itself that would act something more close to an alien film than Godzilla. And it worked to give the film an extra element of suspense. The camera angles from some of the scenes really brought you in and engaged you. Really, the production overall was top-notch for a Godzilla film. Everything from the style of how it was filmed to the various sets that were used. The movie just seemed to be in touch with reality more than many other monster films. The special effects were solid for 1995, especially for a Toho movie, but the actual physical props were really good. From the monster suits to the puppets that were used for the smaller destroyer forms, I never once found myself cringing due to the monsters looking fake. While I know most of the Godzilla Toho films have a really thick layer of cheese around them, not real cheese of course, but it really isn't much of a surprise when I tell you that the older films were definitely kinda cheesy. Outside of the awkward at times dialogue that comes from translating the original Japanese script into English, and that the lip syncing is not always the best, Godzilla vs. Destroyah avoids this cheese more than the majority of the other Godzilla films. The actors performed on a level higher than most, and this translates in the story as well. A lot of the time, people who aren't die-hard fans of Godzilla will think that the franchise is nothing more than a goofy, not very well wrote out monster story. And yeah, those Godzilla films certainly exist, but Godzilla vs. Destroyah is definitely not one of them. Like I said, this movie chooses scary and emotional tones over trying to get some little kitty smiles. The introduction of Destroyah in this story was perfectly set up to give respect to the original Godzilla film from 1954. And actually throughout this entire movie you can see callbacks to the original. Destroyah was brought to life due to the leftover waste that came from the Oxygen Destroyer, the weapon that killed the original Godzilla. With this being what was thought to be the last Toho Godzilla film before the turn of the millennium, it was a nice thing to see them go back to where it all began. Here's the question for you residents, what part of Godzilla films usually get the most hate? If you guessed human characters, you don't get anything, but good job. It's no secret that the human characters throughout all the Godzilla franchise have been criticized for being boring, uninspiring, and really bringing nothing special to the story. There's usually a ton of debating in some big room or just some back and forth banter that just leaves us all asking, where the fuck is Godzilla? Well, Godzilla vs. Destroyah does have plenty of boring debates in big rooms filled with fancy people. The rest of the human characters don't take away from this film as much as they normally do. I actually enjoyed them for the most part, especially Miki Segusa, played by Megumi Odaka. And we'll get back to her here in a little bit. One thing that did have me scratching my head was the scene where the smaller Destroyer forms were terrorizing the Japanese self-defense force. It wasn't really that I had beef with the monsters and how they were killing all the men, that was actually pretty badass. But why are they allowing the press to be just like yards away from complete and total monster carnage? Like, what the hell? Now it's time to talk about what all of us want to hear. The monsters. In this film, Godzilla is still a major threat to humanity and even Earth due to his burning state. I like how this was established to set up Godzilla's death, but something about the idea of Godzilla destroying the entire planet just from heating up that seemed to be a bit for me. It seemed to be a little bit over the top, and I feel like it would have made more sense for them to just say Japan and the Pacific was in danger. This is more of a nitpick than anything, though. Destroyah, on the other hand, was pure evil, and he just embodied danger and death. Danger, danger, danger. Really more than any other Godzilla monster I've seen. Godzilla looked awesome in this movie. The suit was fantastically made, and the way how they put the lights into it to help bring the burning aspect out more was top notch for Toho during the time. I do wish we got to see a little bit more of Godzilla though in this film. Everyone seems to hate on Godzilla 2014 for this aspect, but really a lot of the older Godzilla films have the same issue. He's really only in the film for a little bit. He pops up from time to time, but you don't really get a good look at him until the end of the film. Just like Godzilla 2014. But we're not talking about that film. While I did enjoy how the G-Force followed Godzilla around, giving him some epic and powerful shots really, most of the Godzilla action was lacking in excitement. However, when Burning Godzilla and Destroyah did finally meet up, it was well worth the wait. You could sense the high stakes of this fight within the creatures themselves, as they both refused to give up or back down. Unfortunately, this fight kinda ended in a little bit of a lull. Godzilla wasn't even the one who gave Destroyah the final blow, as the devilish monster was shot down by human forces and it just kinda went boof. For such a powerful fight, especially with Godzilla, I mean, he was really feeling this one. This was just a bit of a lame finale for Destroyah. Luckily, Godzilla's fate was much more well thought out and, well, was easily the best shot of the entire movie and quite possibly the most emotionally gripping scene in the entire series. The G-Man and Big D were definitely great monsters, but the one that stole the show was Godzilla Jr. This little guy just had so much damn courage that you couldn't help but to root for him. And all his time on screen was highlighted from the viewpoint of Miki Sagusa as she followed him around. The connection her character had with the son of Godzilla was well done and it didn't feel forced. She really felt like a dedicated and loving biologist-like character. One who thinks of the animals as more than just a job, but respects them as living beings, just like us. It was good resonance. And when Junior did fall to Destroyer, it made it feel even more like a punch to the gut. Godzilla vs. Destroyah is one of the more dark Godzilla films in existence, but it's also one of the more emotional ones as well. You care about Godzilla, his son, the human characters even. It had all the goods of a Godzilla film, but also had less of the bads that tend to be a norm for the franchise. It was without a doubt awesome, and I highly recommend you go check it out or rewatch it even. Godzilla vs. Destroyah gets a B. B for Baragon, which starred in our latest Monarch File episode, which if you haven't seen that, definitely go check it out. If you want more Godzilla film reviews, just let us know and share this video with some of your friends. Hopefully you guys didn't think the whole face cam thing was too weird. We're kind of trying to bring this back a little bit. We want you guys to see who we are. I'm Jacob, by the way, if you didn't know. If you want to see our faces more, just let us know in the comments. So as always, residents, peace out.